Greetings and welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Don Cardenas, and today I am welcoming back a returning guest who I've been long awaiting for them to return because that means they have the second issue of their book ready to go out. And I really loved the first one, and I can't wait to see what happens in issue 2 of Savage Wizard. Man, I messed that up already. Savage Wizard. It's late. We're rolling with it. It's fine. I've had too much coffee anyway. But without further ado, Leslie Julien, thank you for coming back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Don. I'm super excited to be back.
Yeah, I've been, there's people I've had on, and I'm like, I always want to have people come back on because it's good to keep talking about these things I'm enjoying and the creators that I'm following and just who I think are just doing great work. And I was really excited to see that finally Savage Wizard 2 is ready to go, or at least for the Kickstarter. I don't know what the status of the whole book is, but we'll get into that later because I really enjoyed Savage Wizard #1. I'm going to mess that up.
I didn't realize it's such a tongue twister. It's what you're saying, but you're right. It's a little bit of a tongue twister.
Mostly for me, I guess. I don't know. Savage Wizard #1 was really fun, and I got to reread it because the last time I read it was I read it when it first was, I had the digital edition. So when I first got it there, and then I read it again a few months ago, I want to say maybe November. And then I looked at it again. I'm just like, this is just such a fun book. And, as fun as a book it can be with the protagonist getting their hand cut off and their entire way of life changing in an instant. But on top of that, though, it's just something like, I can't wait to delve back into this world. And I'm really glad that, even though you had to take on more of the reins of yourself with the writing and then find a new artist, that it seems like, from what I can tell, like it's still going to feel the same. It's still going to look the same and all that. And I want to talk to you about the search for a new artist and finding that similar feel. Because, Brian, he definitely had he created a look for the world, and that you guys wrote up. And, while I'm sure there could be plenty of other great takes to it, it definitely was that great fusion of just like big exaggerated action, but also like just nice lush nature stuff. And I it looks like that's just going to be continuing on with this new artist. But first things first, Leslie, Comics Coffee Metal, what are you digging right now?
Right now, for metal, I'm digging Sepultura. I got into them through actually, I think it was tangentially related to you in my Instagram feed. I think it's Coffee and Metal, that Instagram channel. They're promoting a lot of like black metal bands for Black History Month, and I checked out Sepultura, and I loved what I heard. So definitely digging Sepultura right now. And not coffee, but in terms of drinks, I'm digging the Blake's Hard Cider these days. It's a really fun hard cider drink. So check that out. It's good stuff.
Yeah. I'm not really a alcoholic drinker person. I'm pretty much a teetotaler. But cider, like if I know if I ever were to, I'd be like one of those guys who just like drinks nothing. Like I wouldn't drink any actual just like hard liquor or beer. I would always have like the hard cider or the hard lemonade, or I'd be the guy ordering a Shirley Temple or something. Well, that's not alcoholic, you know what I mean? I'd be ordering the pina coladas or something,
I drink like maybe like 12 times a year. So like when I do drink, I just go for ciders. Honestly, I don't drink a ton, but ciders my jam.
They sound good because ciders are great, and so I'd imagine, plus the effects of, loosening up a little bit, sounds pretty good too. I'm glad you're into Sepultura now, even though they're disbanding.
I know, sad. I was like, of course, I find a fan that's disbanding, but they're amazing stuff. I really like what I'm hearing.
There's almost 40 years of amazing stuff. But Derek Green, their vocalist, who took over for Max Cavalera, is just phenomenal. And I don't give them enough spins in my own rotation. Like I have a few of the earlier stuff, but I haven't really given their later stuff enough plays because it is good. It is just right on there, and their live performances are just nuts. It's insane.
I just like love the vocal energy I'm hearing from Derek, and I just like immediately I can do just the first song I heard was like Roots, Bloody Roots. And I was just like, I love this. Like,
I actually covered that song a few years ago.
Oh, nice.
It's such a fun song.
Yeah,
because it's really just one riff.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove my wife absolutely fucking nuts, like rehearsing it, because I'm hearing the heavy distorted burn, burn, burn. She's hearing me plunking away on my headphones, bing, bing, like all night. And
Yeah.
she's like, "What are you doing?"
It's
I'm
like,
like,
it'll
"I'm
make
recording
sense.
this
I
song."
promise it'll make sense when
And
it's all finished.
yeah, yeah. And then you'll burst a few blood vessels screaming it out and all that. Is Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Roots, Bloody Roots. That's one of those, it's like all time classic metal songs. And whether it's Max or Derek performing it, it's just a jam.
Yeah.
It's undeniable, I guess. But so that's awesome. How about comics? What comics you been digging lately?
Comics, I'm slacking. I have a big fat queue of stuff that I need to read
Right there
right
with
now.
you.
Um, I have recently things that I need to read, but I haven't read. Mary Tyler Moorhawk by Dave Baker. That's sitting
Hmm.
there just waiting for me to pick up. Full Tilt should be in the
Oh,
mail
yeah.
any day now. By Jason Copland, who I'm sure everyone who is into indie comics is eagerly awaiting that book. That's definitely been in my queue for a while. Beyond that, what else do I have just sitting there waiting for me to read? Just a lot of Kickstarter stuff, unfortunately. I got like, ooh, I'm so excited it's there, and then like I'm too busy making my own stuff to crack the books open. But there's definitely some great stuff that I need to just stop and smell the flowers and read some comics.
Yeah, I'm with you. I started this year. I'm like, I found my old Android tablet from like 10 years ago. Like it still managed to work, at least to read PDFs. So I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna have this set up next to my bedstand, and it's only good to read PDFs. So I'm gonna read whatever, because I buy, when I do a Kickstarter, 99% of the time I'm doing the digital option. One,
right.
because I don't have the space for a lot of books. Two, I get to back more than I normally would because it's a little bit of a cheaper option. Three, it's easier for everyone involved.
Yep,
No one has to pay printing costs or shipping costs or about
yep,
fulfillment. Just send me the link, bro. It's cool. Um, but also it's very easy for me then to like put off reading it and all that. And I just got my link to Full Tilt, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not backing the physical version now, even though I'm like at the time I was like, oh, I couldn't swing it, but yeah, because watching Jason Copland just like, and he was on the show back when it was going, and I've known him for quite some time. This knowing how much he's been putting into that book, I'm so glad to see the
yeah.
reactions people are getting of it, because that's what we've all been telling him for like
Hmm.
years at this point. It looks phenomenal. You're great. People are going to love it. And of course, as you can be told that, but
Of
but
course.
the reaction is what you kind of really need from the people who aren't your friends and people
Hmm.
who
Yeah,
aren't.
yeah.
Uh,
It's great to
uh,
see a true comic success story like that. Like just the anticipation and like the
yeah,
positive, yeah, the feedback he's been getting. I'm just like super excited for him, and also super excited to get that book in my freaking hands one of these
yeah.
days.
It's Yeah, I did get a chance before he came on the show to like read the non-lettered version.
Mm,
And it's just a beautiful thing to look at, man. It's just great. And speaking of beautiful things to look at, Savage Wizard. It's as I mentioned at the top of the show, the first issue. I really liked the art from Brian Flint. I thought it was really lush. It was really just action packed, really, really just full of energy and excitement. And so, we don't have to get into why, but like, he's no longer the artist. Doug is no longer co-writing with you. I wasn't sure, you know, after, you kind of announced like, hey, here's the situation, you know, it's carrying on. It's me. It's this new artist. And I'm like, okay, cool. Cause reading your stuff, like, I'm like, I was just excited to see this story continue. And we have a new artist with, forgive me if I get the name wrong, Nero Crane.
yep, that's him.
And I checked out their Instagram real quick, and I'm like, this fits. This fits. If anything, it seems to be. Um, I'm trying to think of the right, almost. I don't want to say tighter, but like it's definitely in that realm where it's just got those the big expression, but also the nice lush details for everything. What was the kind of feeling when you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to carry the torch of Savage Wizard up, and move forward with Tobin, the great letterer.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, and what was that kind of that feeling of like, okay, what do I do? Did you ever feel like I'm not gonna? it's gonna be that's it, we're done, I guess, we won't move on, or is it like
Yeah,
no,
initially I
not
was
going
like, all right, I guess like one and done. And I think I kind of said that to Doug privately, and unfortunately, Doug wasn't able to continue because of some health issues he had at the time, and so he just kind of wanted to, yeah, take like a long break from things. And I asked him like, sure, I can leave in space for you if you want to return, but he, at least at the time, was definitely just uh, wanted to step away. So
Mhm.
um, I told him, I was like, I think maybe I just stop with Savage Wizard also, but he really encouraged me to keep it going. And so I was like, okay, I guess I have to keep it going. Like, I mean, I always had a passion for the book, and Doug did as well. I mean, Doug is basically the reason why it got past the idea stage, because we were talking and he was like, we should make this into a comic. But so after Doug had to exit, and Brian unfortunately also had to exit, just because of kind of family obligations,
Mhm.
once I was kind of left in that position with just being the only person left, and then looking for a new artist to kind of pick up the mantle. uh, I kind of put something out there on Twitter, and I came across Nero Crane's work, and I was blown away by one, the expressiveness of his character design, and yeah, like you said, that tightness of his action. Like he could really just hammer down like some action scenes really well, which is, those are two key pieces of Savage Wizards. Like it's the action, and also like the physical comedy is a very strong component of it as well. So um, he did like a test page, and I was like, yeah, like let's do
This
this.
is
He
it.
was like totally on board. Like he loved the concept, and it's like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. And yeah, we've been having some fun behind the scenes.
Awesome, awesome, glad to hear it. And I don't know Doug too well. We're kind of just Twitter mutuals. We've had some interactions, but from all my understanding, like everyone thinks really highly of him, and he did take. Yeah, I remember him taking a break because health stuff. But it's good to see that he's back, and it's great to hear that he's championing you to like go no, carry it on. Let's get this going. So because I know how difficult that could be, just when you're trying to tackle on everything yourself and like move forward and find new people to come in on things. It's just it's easy just to say no, it's done, move
Yeah.
on something else. But you know, uh, no one said comics are easy.
No. Yeah, I'd say
Get back to
besides
comics.
my wife,
Yeah.
Doug has just always been like a really huge supporter, and just like
Mhm.
really helped me in terms of like, yeah, finding that confidence, and like, dude, like, no, we're talking about like, this is a good page, like this is going on, like, or like, that's a good idea. Like, so I was actually even talking to him about number three. Like I was wrapping up
Mhm.
the script for number three, and I had him looking over it, and like he had some great things to say, like yet again. Like, so like,
Awesome.
yeah, Doug's just a great person to have in your corner for sure.
Awesome. That's great. So with Savage Wizard one, it's the story of Renar. Am I saying it right? Renar,
Yes, you are. Hmm.
Barbarian Chief Renar, and he gets backstabbed by his best friend, Scam. Am I saying that
Yep.
right?
Again. Right. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
this
Exactly. I
name
try
because
to
also
make it pretty phonetic, but
when
yeah.
you're is it Scam? Is it Scom? Like
Scum.
how ominous are we getting with it? But basically he's a barbarian class type fighter, and then through very bad happenstance he loses his hands, uh, and he has to figure out a new way to fight, which is I think a great avenue to explore a fantasy story where usually it's something like, oh, the lowly barbarian has to rise up and become this great leader or whatever, and no that he was already good.
Yeah.
Like now he has to become something different that he never thought he would be.
Yeah.
And I feel like with the first issue there was a great blend of kind of like that the comedy, but also like the heaviness of the story and the seriousness of everything. And going with issue two, um, is there are there any particular scenes that, without spoiling anything, that you'd
Hmm.
be really excited for people to see?
Yeah. I'm super excited. Actually, so originally it's gonna be a 24-page book, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna have 4 more pages of just like crazy action, just because, like, you know what? Like, there's not enough, blood and
Yeah.
guts in this. So like, let's throw some more in there.
So,
So there's something I just added that like I'm like, super excited for Nero Korean to draw, and people to see. Beyond that, I'm really excited to see for people to finally see Renard doing some magic. I mean, that's like, hey, he's finally getting to the wizard part, and he's finally, yeah, taking up the magical mantle. So I'm super excited to see what people think of that, and just I'm happy to see that part expressed in the comic now.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. When this episode drops, the campaign will be currently live. So I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes for everyone to go check out. Um, when when you're kind of putting together a Kickstarter campaign, this is something always I like to ask people, like, are there
Mm-hmm.
certain tiers that you're really excited for people to have, or are you kind of someone, because there's so many ways you can do a Kickstarter with the tiers. You can go crazy and go nuts and have a ton of fun, crazy tiers, which could work to your favor or not.
Yeah.
Or you can keep it really simple and have just a handful, which could go to your favor or not. Welcome to Kickstarter. You don't know what you're going to do. It's going to work out for you. You just got to try it. But when you're constructing the tiers, are there any in particular that you're like, man, I think they're all great, obviously, but is there any one in particular like I really hope people go for this one?
I think for this one, obviously the main like basic tier of like, hey, like get the book. I did try to keep things like a little bit simpler since it's just me this time around.
Mhm.
So I definitely didn't try to go too nuts. But I think one of the other tiers besides the physical tier that I'm looking forward to seeing how people react is I have a tier for this is more. I think I have it for both the digital and the physical, but some of my my other work, compiling that into like a bundle. So yeah,
Mhm.
people want to check out the stories like head cases, which is another mini series I'm working on. They can check that out in addition to some other stuff I've written like Ghost Gauntlet.
Awesome, awesome. What's one of the things I do love about Kickstarters, especially with independent comics, is how you can just easily get with another bundle or whatever, or even if it's a stretch goal or something. Not only that creators work, but sometimes other creators that are pitching in and like giving their PDFs for things, and you can just be. It feels just like so much more of an incentive to
Yeah.
just do all that. And I am right there with you with like trying to keep it simple because with our past couple Kickstarters for Evie and the Helsings, it felt like, well, I think we've had at least a few people back every tier at the very least. It felt like a lot to
Hmm.
like look at and track and a lot of people really liked it, and we haven't had any negative feedback by it. But it just like Steve's the guy who mainly runs it, but I'm trying to help him out and take on more of the fulfillment stuff and try to help out with more of that because it's a lot of work
Yeah.
and you're doing it all yourself. And that was going to be one of my main questions is like, is this all yourself? Are you doing like a backer kit thing? Are you going to a
No,
service
yeah,
or
so
are
it's
you
going to
like,
be all
nope.
me. So yeah, if I get yeah, like 200 physical requests, and that's me going to to the post office, 200 times or whatever. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping that in mind in terms of, yeah, like either the simplicity or complexness. Like I said, definitely trying to keep it manageable for myself because I'm going to be the one that is doing all the fulfillment and
Mm-hmm.
getting all my Gemini mailers in order and all that. So yeah, definitely not trying to go too nuts and like making sure stuff is going to be in the weight range and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Gemini mailers. Like I never had assembled any of those until the second issue. Oh,
Yeah.
because we kind of split it up where it cost us a little bit of our profit, but I'm
Hmm.
like you can't take this all on yourself, Steve. Like you got to
Yeah.
do something. So we actually had it. So like he sent me like he had like the suppliers like send me like not a half, but like a good portion of like mailers and books and stuff like that. And he just emailed me PDFs of all the labels. So I just printed out and slapped them on there and took them to the post
Nice.
office. But like putting the mailers and all that, and like I think I altogether I fulfilled maybe like 75 packages.
That's a
Which
lot.
yeah, and I'm like, but one of my previous day jobs was at the end of the day, I'd have to pack up a lot of stuff and ship it out.
Hmm.
And it kind of brought me back to that assembly line mentality. And
Uh-huh.
I never minded that. So I was kind of like, I can do this. I can do this all day,
Yeah.
And even though Steve and I are in the same state, it's still like 4.5 hours away
Hmm.
from each other. Because the first idea was like, I would drive down there and help him fulfill and all that. So I don't know if you're going to have anybody local to you can have help fulfill, or you're gonna have to recruit your wife.
Yeah, it's gonna be a family affair, I
Yeah.
think.
If my kids were old enough for me to trust them to do it, I'd be like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, maybe in
Back
a
it up.
couple more years, I can start enlisting my kid to kind of help with that. But for now, yeah, it's gonna be all me and maybe a little bit of help from my wife.
Nice, nice. So with you taking over the main writing duties of Savage Wizard with issue two, was there like an overall guideline for the series? Because if I recall correctly, it's four issues are kind of the goal
Hmm.
total. Was there kind of like a goal, like how well plotted out were the future issues, or was it just kind of like, here's where we're starting, here's this kind of paragraph of like what happens after, and then we would write it as we go.
Yeah. So it was, I guess you would say, loosely outlined before. Before Doug had to step away, we had, I think, written like maybe the first 8 pages or so
Hmm.
for number two. So yeah, I ended up completing everything, and it more or less follows that outline. I did, like I said, add some things that weren't there just because it's a loose outline. There's definitely space to take away things or to add a lot, but we have like the general, like, oh, okay, this is where the story's going to start and this is where it ends, and kind of there's a lot of things that can kind of go in between. There's a lot of space for working on the fly and adjusting and things like that. But for the most part, like the story is there in the main beats.
Okay. Um, and when you and when Doug would work together, like
Hmm.
how was that? Like, was it like you would write a page or so, and then he kind of like go over and like do a few pages himself, and then you guys would kind of like, or would it be like a very common thing? Because some of the writing duos I've had on, it seems to be a lot of the times it's like a shared Google document,
Hmm.
and you're both like working on it, and you're both are like seeing this update, like, oh, what did he put in, and then and like, oh, that's cool. I mean, like, that makes me think of this, and and do all this. So what kind of was that process like? Before it became just you on duties.
Yeah, it was really fun. I'm not sure if we did it differently or the same as other folks, but basically, I would write a couple pages, and then Doug would write a couple pages, and I'd write a couple, and then he'd write a couple. So we kind of go back and forth, and then we'd kind of switch on editing each other's like pages that we did to kind of make
Mhm.
sure it's cohesive. But pretty much, it would, yeah, like I said, go like a leapfrog. Like I do three, he do three, I do three, till we get all the way to the end of the book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Um, the best thing and worst thing about making comics is the fact that everyone does it a little differently.
yeah,
So even if like it is the exact same setup, even when it comes to drawing comics, yeah, we can all use like even like the same tools and all that, but we still approach things differently. We still
right.
take things to a different level. Like, I might pencil in less than someone else might before they start inking, or vice versa. Um, and with writers, I'm sure it's this exact same way. Some people have a lot of plot put down, a lot of the beats put down, and then they're like, okay, now I'm going to keep detailing and digging and digging and digging in and doing all that. For you now yourself, what is your process kind of like? Are you very much a sit down and I got to get 5 pages done today, so I'm going to get 5 pages done today no matter what? Or are you like, you know, because I know none of us can afford to wait for inspiration. Mike Norton, great artist, and Bud, he has a new shirt which I love. It says "Inspiration is for amateurs,"
That's awesome.
and I can't say anyone I've talked to sits around and waits for inspiration. It's great when it happens, but there's you got to sit down and grind it out. That's how you get things done. So, for you, like an average day, what is the writing thing? Because you also have a family and day job and
Hmm.
all the other stuff. So, where does writing fit in with your schedule? How do you like approach it every day? Do you write every day? Because you don't, like, not everyone draws every day, not everyone writes every day. So,
Hmm.
a very very long winded way of saying, how do you work?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I would say in the past, I would try to get up earlier and write, just because, yeah, like
Mhm.
you said, with family and work and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, you have to find the time works. And for me, before it was before heading to work, I'd try to get like 30 minutes in, and I'd write that way. But uh, I kind of more recently gotten a job that starts a lot earlier, and so I do not want to get out of bed as early as I have in the past. So funny enough, I would say the last 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, I've been writing a lot at work when it's slow, and I've been doing a decent job at it. So I think all of the parts of Savage Wizard 2 that weren't already written were all completed at work. So
Oh,
I'm getting a lot of productive moments at work these days, it seems. So yeah, that's my
well,
current process. Maybe it'll change, but right now, yeah, a lot of
while
double
making sure
duty.
your actual duties are taken care of
Of
is just
course,
when
yes.
of course, in case your employers happens to
Hmm.
watch. No, I was definitely doing that when I had before kids came, and I switched to a at home part time thing. But that was definitely me like laying out pages on post-it notes in between little quiet moments and things like that, because that's what you got to do. You got to find it in and squeeze it in everywhere, and all that. So that this probably negates my next question, which is like, do you listen to anything while you write? Do you, because I know some writers are like, I need silence, or I need instrumental music only, or it doesn't matter if a barreling train is coming towards me. I don't care. Like, whatever's on is fine by me.
It's funny. I go back and forth these days. Like I would say in the past, when especially when I wasn't writing at work, I would like need some kind of instrument, music to help me out, and especially like depending on what I was writing, I'd kind of get some theme stuff. So like yeah, for like a lot of first issue of Savage Wizards, I was listening to a lot of like hair metal, like just a lot of like a big like over top like instrumental metal stuff. And then for this issue, I would say like sometimes I'm writing to instrumental music, but other times I'm just writing to nothing because like I'm like one maybe like trying to not overstimulate myself or distract myself in
Mhm,
case like yeah I need to be obviously doing my actual job, and
mhm.
two I think sometimes I could just kind of get in the groove, like when I was just like not listening to anything. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing it this way. But I can kind of go back and forth. But I feel like lately I've been getting more comfortable with writing without music.
Okay. Yeah, it's I'm definitely the person who kind of always needs to have something on or whatever. But I have, when I do get those moments where like just something ends or whatever, and you're just in the zone and you're just
Hmm.
going. That's like some of the like best moments, I think,
Yeah,
because as fun as it is, or nice it is to have like music or video or whatever playing while you're working or whatever, it's just you just get wrapped up in everything, and you're in that world, and you're just when you sit back, you're like, oh wow, and then you look back at what you did, and you're like, sweet,
yeah,
you know.
that's the best. Like literally
Um,
like, a moment from soul. Like yeah, it's like literally in the zone. Like that's the best right there.
yeah, it's and I've been trying to write here and there some stuff, and I'm my brain works in a very psychotic way where it's like it I need more noise when I'm trying to write for some reason. I think because it needs to tune, like I need the noise to have part of my brain actively try to tune it out,
Yeah, that makes
so it
sense.
also tunes out the other things that are not in my brain while I'm trying to write. And it's really weird for me because it's just like it feels like incredibly controlled chaos
No, that
is
makes perfect
happening, because
sense.
and it's kind of insane sometimes. So it's always interesting to talk to a writer and kind of see what their process is with that, because as I'm trying to develop that skill for myself, there's no wrong way really to like kind of do it, but I kind of like to know all the ways
Yeah,
just in case.
it's funny. So talking about the process and everything now, and I would say the one good shift of surreptitiously writing at work is that so at home, like I'm obviously at the leisure of my own internet and everything like that. So
Hmm.
like I would be not necessarily wasting a lot of time, but like using up a lot of time, like looking up references that are going to be like,
Hmm.
0.1% of the book versus like now I'm like, okay, I'll find that reference later. Like, so I'll just like put add reference, add like versus like before, like again, like taking time away from the writing, looking up references of like, oh, I wonder how a body falls from, a 10-story foot building or something like that, like, oh, seeing like, oh, this is the angles and this is like the
Yeah.
onomatopoeia I need for what that falling sound is. Versus now I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna get to later and keep writing, you know. So that's a interesting thing I've noticed.
Yeah, it's definitely working, working from home now and just trying to like factor in everything. That structure is so like key to have because I can definitely, I have my own ADHD thing happening too. So that's already like you know, like a ticking clock because, my brain won't, I can't exactly choose exactly what my brain's going to want to hyper focus on.
Yep.
But, um, it's about having that structure with it and not getting lost in it. Because when you mention like, just you're not wasting time because you're still doing things for the project.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, is this what you should be doing right now for the
Right.
project?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a trap I fall into so much. Um, like my biggest thing now is like if I got all my book laid out, and then I'll just start working on backgrounds for like page 12, and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, why am I working on backgrounds for page 12 right now? Go to page 1, finish
Yeah.
that one first, then 2, then get up to 11, and then start on 12.
Yeah.
Um, and parts, most of it sometimes it's just like, you know I got to do it all anyway. I feel this is what I'm feeling like doing. So if I feel like doing it, I'm still getting work done, but
Right.
it creates further chaos down the line.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Yeah.
When you get back to that page and you're like, wait, when did what was this? And then, so you're definitely I'm definitely putting the cart before the horse for myself there. So I've been trying to like really rein that in and get the structure going.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel you there when it's just like, and I'm glad that you've kind of found your way to like, okay, I'm just going to do this later. Boom, boom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really trying to do that. I'm trying to limit myself to at least like not jumping that far ahead, but like, opening up, because since I work on my iPad, opening up like 3 or 4 pages, and then like, I have an hour to sit down right now. I'm going to work on some faces on
Yeah.
each page, and just go that way and just kind of
It's
like
hard to break those habits, but
it,
slowly but
it, it,
surely.
it is. It's not the most efficient way, but it's not exactly inefficient.
Right.
It's
It's
just
just like
like,
what
it's
you're
just,
used to, and so like you kind of
yeah,
get in that pattern. Yeah,
yeah.
I get it.
Um, one thing I'm struggling with, and I'm wondering if this applies for writers too as well, and I'm sure it might, but one thing I struggle with is like sitting with things
Mm-hmm.
before I'm like, okay, it's done.
Yeah.
You know, I've long ago gotten used to the idea of finished is better than perfect,
Oh yeah.
always. But doing 2 books at once, always trying to feed books pages in so colors can keep moving ahead and we can keep trying to have some type of schedule. I find a lot of times I'm not like I'll upload a page and then I'll look at it and I'm like, oh shit, I could probably do that part better. Or I could, not huge things, but like little things.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same for you, or do you give yourself like the grace to kind of like, okay, I finished this, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna let it sit for a few days, I'm gonna come back to it, or is it like it's done, let's go?
Yeah, I feel like I can be of two minds. I can definitely almost be like too quick to be like, okay, it's done at times,
Mhm.
and that's when it's good to yeah, kind of get peers in and outside voices like slow down, like you missed a T that you could cross an I. But in general, I would say like for me, I'm kind of always poking at it and tweaking it until like it's in the letter's hands and it's like okay that's last balloon like like but I'm like always yeah kind of finding something that can be like trimmed down and a little sleeker and then tweak that way so stepping back from it can kind of be tough until like I yeah like you said that on that last page I'm like okay give it a week and see if there isn't anything too jarring and then you can kind of yeah like I said kind of slowly start that production process of okay like telling Neurocrane or whatever artist might be in that situation that okay it's ready to start working on and then colors and letters and that kind of thing.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I can imagine like as a writer, I would be absolutely terrible with like, oh, I can tweak up to the last minute. And given the fact that like, the things I am writing there's about 5 different shorts and stuff I'm kind of toying around with. Most of them I'm planning on just doing everything myself.
Okay.
So I know the letterer Don is gonna fucking hate writer
Yeah.
Don,
Right.
and artist Don's gonna fucking hate writer Don, and colorist Don's gonna hate everybody. He's gonna hate everybody.
Yeah.
Um, so much so that he might just quit. It might just be black and white. But it so like having that much like tweakability
Is
is
a good
it's
and
kind of
bad, right? Like, oh my gosh, like maybe too much power.
yeah, it is too much power, but it's also like why I find myself more and more like glad that I'm working with other people on these other books because it's I don't get to choose the colors on Evie and the Helsings and spend the night. But when I get them, when I see them, I'm like, this is great. This is
Yeah.
not what I thought it would be in my brain, but it's done by a professional who knows what they're doing, and I love it. And same thing with the lettering and stuff like that. So it's like it's nice to have to let go of the reins on that. And I'm coming from a place where the first book I ever really did, Pax of the Low Country, we did 6 issues. The sixth issue was a double sized issue, which I ended up coloring myself the second half because we didn't have a colorist at the time. And the first issue I lettered myself and I learned how to letter on that. And basically I learned how to do everything I could possibly do on that book. And when I was done with it, I'm like, never again. Never again. And
And you're
then
like,
and then
maybe I
and then
can.
and then you rest a little bit and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe one more time, you know.
Maybe it wasn't as
Um,
horrible as I remember.
this is your second time on the show, and both times you were talking about Savage Wizard, and first time we had I believe Brian on as well.
Hmm.
But we didn't get a chance to kind of dig in to the history of Leslie. Like,
Yeah.
what was your kind of into comics? Like, what was your like earliest comic memories?
So I would say growing up, I didn't read a ton of comics. I read like like the Sunday Funnies, like comic strips and stuff like that, just because
Mhm,
they were easily accessible. So growing up in the '90s, I watched the X-Men animated show and Spider-Man. So I was obviously aware of comic characters, but seeing the Spinner X at the store, I always wanted comics. So my parents would never ever give me any money to get anything. I think for one birthday, I got an X Factor, I believe. I don't remember which X Factor was, but I read an X Factor. But so like jumping forward many years into the future of college, I'm still like over the years had kind of kept up my Ninja Turtles fandom. I was always big Ninja Turtles nerd, still am. I think at the time Dreamwave, it was past Dreamwave. IDW had just started their Turtles, so
mhm,
there was like a comic shop across the street from my college, and I kind of slowly got into comics that way. The IDW line hooked me, and then I think Civil War might have been happening around that same time, or like it
mhm,
just wrapping up. So I got into Civil War and Runaways, and growing up, I had always been writing stories. I drew a little bit too, but I kind of gave it up around high school, and so I was removed from writing stories a bit, but jumping ahead a little bit, I met my wife, then girlfriend, and we were kind of just writing short fiction together, like just coming back and
okay,
forth, like a
cool.
kind of writing party of two. And I think I was reading a ton of comics at the time. She's like, "Why don't you try to make your own?" And I was like, I don't know how to make comics. And I was like, "How do you make comics?" And I think I hopped online and slowly started figuring out the process. But that's basically my comics journey. It was just like um, Ninja Turtles. So thank you, Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, always, always keeping me into the world of comics, and just reading that stuff, and then again like the uh, reading the bigger like Marvel event stuff, and then figuring out more indie comic stuff like Why Last Man and all the
Mhm,
Vertigo books, and then slowly writing my own stuff, and yeah, just starting on like one pagers and then a couple of 4 page stuff, and then kind of expanding a little bit longer to the World of Savage Wizard and head cases.
awesome, awesome.
Yeah,
I know I got a few years on you, but we have a few of the still kind of have those overlapping
yeah,
cultural milestones, like the X-Men animated series
hmm,
and you know TMNT and all that. And I remember when IDW first, when they picked up the title, I was absolutely in love with that book for a very long time, and it's never gotten. I stopped buying when my daughter was born, around almost 8 years ago, and it's not that I stopped enjoying the book. I just stopped buying comics altogether. I just didn't have time to like go
yeah,
and read them.
same,
I
same.
wasn't going to be. go near the shop I was going to in Chicago every week, so I couldn't keep a pull list there. And so it was never a dip in what I thought was the quality, because I've read stuff since, like the Sophie Campbell run, and
Hmm.
I'm really excited to dig into Gavin Smith's run, because he's a bud and he's an amazing artist, and he's like a perfect fit for the Turtles,
Yeah.
his style. But yeah, just the Ninja Turtles, like when that IDW series came, it kind of felt like they're back.
Hmm.
They're
In a
back,
big
man.
way. Yeah.
What and so I have two questions that has to do with X-Men and Turtles, and I'm pretty
Okay.
sure I'm going to ask.
Okay.
One, did you watch the X-Men 97
I have not
episode
seen
yet?
it yet. I'm
Okay.
sure I'm going to get to
Okay.
it, but I have not seen it yet.
As someone who literally was there day one when it premiered, fucking pumped,
Yeah.
excited all the way through, enjoyed the series as a whole, but when it was on, I really loved 97, X-Men 97.
Awesome.
Like it was really, really, like it had that flavor.
Hmm.
The voices that were changed for new people, obviously took a little getting used to, because I had just rewatched
Yeah.
that
Oh, nice.
series
You're
a
right.
couple weeks ago, so they're fresh in my brain.
Uh huh.
And even everyone who returned, their voices are aged. It's been like 20 plus years or
Yeah.
20 years. So, um, but like you by this, by the, second episode right in there. And, you know, as, as a piece of work, it's better than the original series, just because the animation
That's.
is a lot nicer.
Hmm.
The writing is a lot tighter, but it still has that feel. It still has that feel. So please share your thoughts
Yeah.
once you
I
sit
hear
down
nothing
and
but
get
good things. Yeah, I'll definitely let
watch
you
it.
know.
And did you see Mutant Mayhem?
I
Did
did,
you,
and I
what was your
loved it.
thoughts?
I think for me, the nostalgia might still be there, but I want to say it's my second favorite like Turtles movie ever. Like it's amazing. Like it's a great introduction for kids. It's a great Turtles movie. It's like fun. The action's
Yeah,
amazing. Like I loved it. I thought it was
I, I
incredible.
I I fully agree. There, it is if I had to rank it, it'd be my second favorite.
Hmm.
And again, this is speaking as someone who, I was born in '82, so like when the first Turtles movie came out, I was there,
Yeah.
in the theater. It's the first movie I ever saw twice in the theater.
Yep.
You know, Secret of the Ooze, right there, opening weekend.
Yeah.
The third one, not so much, but
Not so much. We don't talk about that.
um, and then the animated, the CGI animated TMNT that came out in the 2000s,
In
I really enjoyed
2012. Yeah,
that.
I love that show as well. That's a great show.
Yeah. The movie that came out, the one that was, I forget the name of the company that did it, but there's a movie that came out before then.
I know
That
what
was
you're talking
CGI
about. Yeah, I
animated
can't
too.
recall the company either,
It
but
was
the one that's just
2009.
TMNT, that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a
I
great.
thought that was movie was underrated. I didn't think it was great, but I didn't think it. I think it had some negative reviews, and I think it's still a good movie. I don't think it deserved the
The
backlash it
worst
got.
part, the worst part was like the villains, like
Yeah,
that
the
in that
villains were
movie.
kind of
Like the,
generic.
the turtles themselves were great. The
Yeah,
Leo Raph dynamic and
dynamic was
fight,
amazing.
just
Love
it
that.
was amazing.
Yeah.
They really nailed all that, and I wish they had a better. I think if they had more classic villains as opposed to
Hmm.
made up one or whatever, I think people probably would have like flocked to it a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I wish they had got the
again,
chance for a sequel, or yeah,
yeah,
especially if they had worked on some of the classic villains. I think agree, I would have been a little bit more well received.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I saw Mutant Mayhem. I took my daughter to go see it. She's 7, and she loved it. I loved it.
Awesome.
Like everything. Like there's people who had a lot of criticisms about like some of the other mutants
Hmm.
and stuff. Um, you know, and I was like, well, if you're complaining about like the depictions of the other mutants, I can kind of see if like you wanted to have a giant leatherhead,
Hmm.
and instead you get a small one voiced by Rose Byrne, you
Yeah,
know, but also like it's fine. It's
it's
fine. It's
different.
still
It's
it's still
fine.
funny.
Yeah,
It's still
it's
good.
good. It was great.
You know?
I was reticent, in the beginning, like before we knew anything. I was like, oh, I don't know with Seth Rogen, but no, it was great. Like, and
Yeah.
I held
Yeah.
space for it to do what it wanted to do, and I'm glad I did, and it was
Mhm.
awesome. Like my daughter, who isn't super into turtles, loved it. Like,
Yeah.
I I couldn't get her to see it with me in the theaters,
Okay.
And I tried my hardest. I'm not going to see how many theaters, but eventually, when it came to streaming, I finally wore it down. And she's like, "Oh wow, yeah, we should have seen this. This is great." And I was like, "Yes,
Yeah,
victory!" So
and for and for me, it's just like I'm glad that they're continuing on with this version.
yeah,
I'm glad
with the
that
show that's
these
coming.
kids that they had to do the turtles are like going to be my daughter's generation of
Yeah,
turtles. Like those kids were so good.
hmm
I love them so much. It's just
yeah.
like
This is, I would say, the best movie with them as brothers,
yeah,
hands down.
and teenagers,
And teenagers, yes,
teenagers,
exactly. It was actually the
and
teenagers front and center, and I loved it. Like it was great.
yeah, it was great. I'm looking forward to the animated series that they're gonna have with
Same.
that and any sequels. I
Hmm
was trepidatious as well because of the whole Seth Rogen thing. Because I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not a huge Seth Rogen fan at all.
hmm
But the stuff I've seen that he's had in producing, like I believe he's helping produce Invincible, which is
Whoa.
awesome
Yeah.
on Amazon, and I can't deny that they did a great job with that movie.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to like these previous like these older nostalgic properties and stuff like that, is there one that you remember from your youth? You're like, you know what, I wouldn't mind if this came back.
That's a good question. Yeah, because obviously Turtles is still around. There isn't a ton that I'm super nostalgical for that I feel like it isn't still around. Like Street Sharks, I like that. So maybe that. But yeah, other than that, like I'm kind of struggling to think of anything like, ooh, like a really, this is like a hole in my heart that could be refilled right now. I'm sure there's something, but it's just skipping my mind right now. Is there it's something that comes to mind for you right now?
Well, I've thought about this quite a bit since all
Hmm
these things were coming out. Everyone's having all these like, oh man, I can't wait. I have a very like spotty memory
Same.
of my youth. It's
Same.
not great. And I've actually like I've kind of fallen down a rabbit hole of like listening to these horror channel videos, like talking about this old crazy B movie from the 80s or whatever,
hmm
and then realizing like how many of these I remember seeing in the middle of the night when my parents were asleep and going downstairs and watching HBO or whatever,
Yeah.
and like remembering like, oh my god, like I remember watching this. If you would ask me like, did you ever see this movie? I'd be like, what are you talking about? But then like seeing some of the
The
imagery and I'm
visuals.
like,
Yeah.
oh my god, I've seen this. And that's kind of happening with like cartoons now too, because I'm kind of like getting into like, by the way of like retro gaming channels, they're
Mm.
talking about older properties and older cartoons and stuff like Secret Galaxy, that channel.
Okay.
That's a lot of great videos on older media that we're all nostalgic for. Like it's like, oh my god, oh my god. But like one thing I think hasn't really gone away, but I would love to see, and that is just like the American version of the Guyver. I don't know if you've ever seen those movies.
No.
It was it was an anime and I believe a manga
Okay.
series in Japan, but they had like a one like the two American made movies where it was just like the first one was like
Ooh.
they kind of like build like Mark Hamill to be like the superhero Guyver and this guy in this alien suit fighting these like alien monster things called zoonoids or whatever,
That looks cool.
even though he wasn't the main character. But that wasn't the greatest movie. They had but they had like really cool monster effects. And like when you're like 10 and you're seeing like super cool monster suits and fighting and stuff like that,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah. And it's dark and it's gritty. You excuse a lot of things. But then they had the second one come out, which was essentially the main character was played by David Hayter, who
Oh,
does
whoa. Metal Gear. Yeah.
Solid
Solid
Snake
Snake's
and
voice. Yeah.
all that. And it is very much a low budget martial arts like gore fest of like Power Rangers with just heads getting split open by giant monsters. Like if like any of that kind of weird kind of like movies, like check them out. At least look at some YouTube videos about
Yeah.
them.
Hell yeah. I'm
But
looking at
like
a little bit
I
right now.
I
It looks awesome.
but like and also the Guyver itself, like the armor is like this really cool design,
Yes, it
and it's like
is.
I feel like we should be taking advantage of this somehow,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
Yeah,
all
this
that.
is
Like,
sweet.
but instead we're bringing back Beetlejuice, I guess. I don't know,
Yeah. Bringing back
which is fine,
Beetlejuice.
which is
Yeah,
fine.
that's
I'm
definitely.
not disparaging Beetlejuice. It's
Actually, now that you said the Guyver, that kind of reminded me. I would love to see Ronin Warriors come back in some form or fashion. That was one of my
Okay.
favorites growing up as well. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
you're familiar with that.
it sounds. I'm pretty sure I remember a few images from it. It was an animated thing, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, because it's like in that '90s area, like where a lot of that stuff came out. It was like, it gets blurry for me because you had like all the Power Rangers knockoffs too,
Oh yeah, of course.
like I can't even remember the names of half these things, something Cyber Squad or whatever, and
Yeah, the
like all these different things.
Super Sentai. Yeah, yeah, I remember that. What was
Yeah,
that? They're trapped in the
and
computer. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and
There's a lot of VR troopers and yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And just the other day, my kids were, on Disney Plus or whatever, and my daughter was like, X-Men '97, and she's like, that's Daddy's show when he
Oh.
was a kid. And I'm like, yeah. And I was telling them, like, when I was little, I would wake up on Saturday mornings, I'd make myself a bowl of cereal, I'd sit down, and from, X time to X time, we'd be watching cartoons in the morning on TV. And I'm like, you guys don't really get that anymore. Like,
Oh,
you do that, but like, you get
it's
to
different.
pick
Yeah,
what's on.
exactly.
Pick your
You're not
episode. You get to
forced to just drop into whatever's on.
I didn't know if this X-Men episode I was gonna watch was new or not. And you sit
Nope.
down and it's like, the Cyclops centric episode, and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
you know, is that the one I wanted?
Yep.
Um, but so it uh you know, is there I don't know your exact age, so if you don't feel like saying it, that's fine. But like,
No, I'm 4 years younger. I'm
okay,
86.
okay, so you still had some of that Saturday morning
Oh yeah, totally.
experience.
That was my very same experience growing up as well. It's just like you watch what was on, and I
Yeah,
mean, like continuity wasn't really a thing. You just
yeah.
watch crap and enjoyed it. Yeah,
And yeah, it is really funny watching some of these YouTube channels talk about these shows, and then they would mention like, and for some reason they aired this episode first when it was actually 4 episodes late, and it's like, oh wow, like I was wondering, like
yeah.
it just unlocks these things. So I'm like, am I really interested because of nostalgia, or did I really like this thing? And
Hmm.
that's another thing that I've kind of gone down because you know nostalgia is a hell of a drug,
It is.
but like sometimes when you just like, no, this was good, this was good.
Hmm.
um and I'm trying to think of things that maybe I went back to, and I'm like, oh, this wasn't good at all, I didn't like
Yeah.
what was I thinking? Have you done any of the like deep dives into like looking into the stuff you used to enjoy before, or you're like, no, I
Not
know
a
the
ton, only
reason.
because like I feel like I rarely have time to be that reflective these days. But I will say, a few years ago, I did try rewatching like the OG Ninja Turtle show, and past the first season, like it isn't as entertaining as it was when I was a kid. Like as a kid, I was like I was just eating it up, but
Mhm.
looking through an adult eyes, it isn't as compelling just because it's more of a I'm not that this is necessarily a bad thing, like, but more of a monster of a week thing, less of a
Yeah.
like through plot and those kind of things. So it doesn't really compel me as much as the later iterations, like the 2K3 series or the
Mhm.
2012 series, and even Rise of the TMNT and stuff like that.
Rise and the 2K3 series, I have not watched those yet, but I've seen enough people that whose opinions I respect, like who love those shows. I'm like, I need to give those a shot, and definitely because I hear a lot of enough great things about those things, but it's also like I don't want to go and like I have this really bad track record of like if
Yeah,
someone's talking about stuff, either it be a comic or whatever, like, oh man, this is so great, I love it, I love it. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll check it out,
yeah.
and then I just have like a visceral
No, no.
negative reaction to
Yeah,
it, and I don't try to go in with expecting it to be great. I'm just saying, oh, this person likes it, it might be pretty good, and there's definitely some comics that were like that, and I'm like, oh man, I feel really bad saying I don't like this,
right. Yeah,
and
I know the
I won't say
feeling.
it,
Yeah,
but
same.
no.
Keep it quiet.
But and there's been a few where I'm like, maybe I just need to get back to it. Maybe I need to come back to it
Yeah,
or
sometimes
whatever.
you need some time.
Uh, which when I do, and if I do end up liking it, then I will reveal I didn't like this at first, but I came back to it. I'm like, oh, I was dumb,
Yeah,
like Jack Kirby when I was a kid. Like, what is this? This
of
is the king
course.
of comics. And
Yeah,
then as an adult, you're like, yeah, he's the fucking king.
of course. You
Like,
got me.
look at
Yeah.
this shit. Um, but yeah, it's insane the things. And you know, you mentioned you have kids, so it's like, you know, as these things are becoming available to our kids,
Hmm.
like are they going to be interested in this? Like right now, we're all really into retro games. Like there's a ton of these like little mini handheld things that are
Oh,
out there. Uh, you know, to specifically give reference to anyone who might know, like the Ambernick 30 RG35, or I have a Pow Kitty something, and these are the name of the brands, but basically like little mini Game Boy like things. They have all these emulators and all this stuff on there.
gotcha.
And lately we've just been kind of like, we all kind of like, including my wife, we all kind of sit around, we each kind of got, you know, one or a couple we share, and like we're just playing Mario.
Awesome.
like I finally like beat Super Mario 2 for the first time
Oh
ever.
wow,
Like
congrats.
it's just like these weird like little things where it's like,
Yeah,
I try to like play, I want to play like these more modern games, but it feels like I can't start a fucking game without having to make sure I have 4 hours
yeah.
to like
Uh-huh.
invest into it before I can say, okay, I got to stop now,
Right.
you know. And keeping the theme with turtles, like that's what I loved about Shredder's Revenge when that came out, that new game. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've
Yeah,
had a
like
chance to play it at
quick and
all.
easy. Like I like short games. Like as a kid, I'm
Yeah,
like, no, I want the game to be as long as possible. And now as an adult, I'm
yeah,
like, the shorter the better. Bring me the short games, please.
yeah. And you know, the fun thing about Shredder's Revenge is like even my 4-year-old son, he was able to play it. You
That's
know, he was
awesome.
able to just like kick some ass as
Yeah,
Michelangelo. You know,
that's fun.
it's like, and that game is like really replayable too, because
Hmm.
one, you can play one through, you're good, great. But like as you level up the characters, it just becomes this a lot of fun just to beat the shit out of
Yeah,
people.
it's
Like,
great.
you know,
Easy to hop in and hop out of. Yeah, it's a blast.
yeah, I believe our mutual bud Lamb Pitts was like loves playing as April, and I think he told me like
Oh,
he has like 100 hit combo he does with her or
oh my
something.
god,
I mean,
that's amazing.
insane. Like, but it's also like, man, I want to learn how to do that just with
Yeah,
April. Now,
it,
if you tell me, oh, you want to do a 100 hit combo in Street Fighter or something, no, that sounds really complicated. Or Killer Instinct or whatever.
yeah, but turtles,
Um,
yeah, that's definitely more
but
doable.
Turtles,
It
like,
definitely hit
yeah,
some. Yeah,
let's
I've
do
gotten some 50, 60 hit combos in.
it. Yeah. Well, enough dragging you through the dirty fields of nostalgia. Um, you know, but before I have to let you go, so you can go rest and enjoy your day off. Back to Savage Wizard real quick. Messed up the last time, except Savage Wizard. Savage Wizard.
There it is.
The campaign is when this drops, the campaign will be live. Please go check it out. Hopefully, by the time this is up, you're already funded and you're just sitting
Yeah,
pretty on and looking for some stretch goals
that's the hope.
and doing some fun stuff like that. Um, but you know, something I don't really ask a lot of people just because it feels like an obvious, disingenuous question. But like, if you were to have a Savage Wizard movie,
Ooh.
who would you cast? Who would direct it? You know, what would that look like in your pie in the sky dreams?
Man, pie in the sky. I definitely have thought about the actor. Duke
Mhm.
Winston, I think, would be great
Oh god, yeah, yeah,
for Renard, for sure.
yeah.
Let's see. For Cora, maybe. I mean, I'm actually. I'm sorry, I remember Duke Winston. I'm really bad at actor names in general, but I think that oh, what's her name? There goes my brain. Um, yeah, there goes my brain.
Well, what was she in? What was she in?
Walking Dead. Michelle, yeah, Michonne's actor would be
Oh,
awesome
oh,
for
oh God,
Cora.
why am I spacing on her name now?
Yeah, I
Oh,
know. Like, why is my
let's
brain
let.
not working?
I mean, let's just type it up and look.
Yes.
Terrible people here.
How dare us?
What was her name? You know, I stopped watching The Walking Dead so many years ago.
I
Like,
did as well, unfortunately. Or maybe not
uh,
so. I mean, we think we both knew what we were doing when we stopped. But Denai Guerra. Yeah, sorry, Denai Guerra. She'd
oh
be
yeah,
an awesome Cora. For a director, that's a lot harder for me to think of a director. Who is really doing some great action these days? Hmm,
there's a lot of really great action directors, but
yeah,
there's also, there's not a lot of big fantasy stuff anymore. So like,
that's
who do you
true.
really pick? Who could really take control of that? Who could really? It's a lot of TV stuff for sure,
Yeah,
but it's
that's
like,
true.
who would you pick? Like, and who really? And no offense to amazing hardworking TV directors, but you really don't know their names unless you're
Hmm.
really really
Right.
into it.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately. But yeah, I'm sure there would be someone great out there, but my brain is obviously not wired to think of any of them right now, unfortunately. But yeah, those two for sure pop out in my mind in terms of like the faces of Savage Wizard for sure. That'd be awesome.
yeah, that right then and there, just with those two characters, like yeah, this is that would be a must see, great vibe movie.
Yeah.
We need this. Yeah, I would, as much as I love the comic series and comics are amazing, like having something like this be like a movie or a series or something like that, I think would be so awesome. Like just it wouldn't be it would just look so different from everything else because you have these nasty orc things and you have like this the barbarian aspect, but then you have the magic, and it feels like a lot of fantasy shows these days are kind of stuck in the Game of Thrones
Hmm.
kind of like vibes, and it's like, nah, man, let's bring back some Conan shit. Like, let's bring
Yeah.
back some like
Exactly.
old school, dirt road,
Yeah.
or just crazy jungles and stuff like that. Just get nuts with it, and but yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's my hope.
Leslie, it's been great chatting with you.
Of course.
Thanks for giving up
Always.
your time. Savage Wizard issues 1 and 2, because you can get number 1 as well if you missed out on the first one, which
That's
I
right.
highly recommend you do. It's live now on Kickstarter. Please go check it out. Links in the show notes below. God, why can't I fucking talk today? Links in the show notes below, please. Um, please give this book the support, because I will be personally mad at you if this book is not extremely overfunded and Leslie doesn't have to ship if he has to ship less than 200 packages, I'm going to be pissed off at all of you.
Don't make Don mad.
Give him make it if he's not just cursing my name for wishing upon this much work for him to pack and ship, because this book is such a success. I will be, personally sending nasty letters to all of you. I don't know how we do that, but anyway, go check it out because I want to see issue 3. I want to see issue 4. I want to, you know, uh, see a trade collection. I want to,
Yes, that's the
then
goal. That's the dream. Beginning to trade. I love that.
I want to buy. I want to buy a big, nice, juicy hardcover of this book. Just put it on my shelf and be like, yeah, that's some fucking shit. When my kids are old enough, like, read this, read this.
This is what
Yeah,
dad
daddy knows
read.
that guy. Daddy knows that guy. Yeah. That's mainly, I just want it for clout for my kids. I just want all my friends to be successful, so I just have clout with my kids.
Hell
That's
yeah.
all what all parents want.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I hope.
Seriously though, please go check out Savage Wizard. Again, links down below in the show notes and description. Leslie, let everyone know where they can find you online.
Yep. I'm on Twitter. It's never X at LesWrite, LESWRITE. Instagram is LES_WRITE. And you can find me on my website as well, leswrite.com, and pretty much anywhere on the internet, some variation of Less Right. You'll probably find me if I have that social media thingy.
All right, well, there you go. Leslie, once again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.